Okay, going through these answers will allow us to explore some key components of the film, and it will also allow you to chip in any other thoughts that you have too. So number one then, what teaching method did he use predominantly?
Lecture.
It was the lecture, wasn't it? Andragogy or pedagogy?
Pedagogy.
Very pedagogic. Now clearly that might present issues for some people. Now here's the thing with pedagogy, you've got three components in pedagogy. You've got the learner, you've got the trainer in the middle, and then you've got the message, what has to be learned on the other side. Now if the learner doesn't like the character of the trainer, then they're never going to get the message. But with andragogy, you get rid of the trainer and you connect the learner directly with the message. So there's no personality to have problems with. So that's why andragogy can be quite successful, amongst many other reasons. Right, bit of a vote now then. Did this style of presentation generally work for you? So hands up who generally liked it. Generally liked it. So that's 6, I think. And 1 against. Sometimes it's the other way around, because he is like Marmite. So we're now going to explore things that you did or you didn't like. Some people might find him very arrogant, some people find him quite charismatic. So, as you were the one who wasn't so keen there, Dave.
I just found him very arrogant and very preachy in
Yes.
what he was saying. He was, he had his own opinions. He weren't interested in anybody else's opinion.
Yeah.
So he didn't engage with the people. He was
No connection with the audience.
So I found it, it's not for me.
No. Now, of its time, I suppose, when in the day people used to listen to politicians, teachers, clergymen, there weren't clergywomen, were there? You sort of took it. But we've got a lot more questioning nowadays. But I suppose it was a lecture, he wasn't inviting discussion, but for that reason it attracted that. Yeah. So any other thoughts that you may have, things that you did or didn't like about the event as a presentation?
He believed what he was saying.
So very knowledgeable and confident. Now, what's he been doing then to be very confident?
Knows his stuff.
He knows his stuff, so he was very enthusiastic as well. That will happen to us all then. If we know our stuff, we will be more confident and enthusiastic. And it's a two-way thing. If you are confident as the trainer, then your learners, your trainees will have confidence in you. So it's a win-win situation, perhaps.
Well,
Good.
What I liked about him that he was like on a lower class people's side of things.
Yes. On the workers' side.
Yeah, so that's the majority of the world, so that's kind of a winner.
But that's why it's controversial, because he was talking to a bunch of managers.
I know, that's what I liked about him.
Yeah, but I found that could turn those people off. I mean, he was sitting there,
Yeah.
you're going to have to do this, and almost talking down to the individuals, and I'm thinking, is that going to make them more or less motivated?
Well,
the
I
message is good, but the way he was presenting it, is that going to engage them as those? Is it going to actually encourage them?
Well, I think he thought something had to be done.
Yeah. I mean, there were some good examples where he made them laugh about the jokes about, if you tell your wife this, is she going to believe you this?
Yeah.
So he was engaging them in some ways, but there were some elements of that where you think, well, who's he to tell me what to do? You know,
I think he did that with self-check, because everybody knows somebody, so you can relate to them somehow.
Yeah.
Yes.
I thought his tempo and pitch, I liked it. It wasn't
Yeah,
just
so-
mundane, flat, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
It seemed a bit screw-loosey. Makes it a bit
Yeah.
more interesting.
I like
Good.
the pauses as well.
Yeah, so what could we do during those pauses?
I think it sort of engaged people as well, because he was making them sort of think that he was going to
Yes.
say something else.
Bit of thinking time.
Yeah.
Because he asked lots of rhetorical questions, he wasn't expecting an answer, but maybe we answered it in our mind.
Yes, yeah, I think
Yeah.
that's...
Same as a stand-up comic.
Yeah,
Yeah.
a
Really
bit
a little
like
bit
that,
to sink
yeah.
in.
Yeah, he was. Those of you who know Dave Allen, he seemed to
Yes.
remind me of Dave
Yeah.
Allen.
Yeah.
He was an Irish comedian who was very successful, but his same sort of manner, I think, perhaps.
Mm.
Good. Anything else that you did or you didn't like? Well, what was going on economically in '72 in Britain? Lots of strikes.
Yeah, the winter of discontent, as they called it, wasn't it?
Well, we seem to be going back to that
Yeah.
right now.
But, yeah, it was a lot of unemployment, disgruntled workers at the time, you know.
Absolutely. In fact, the miners had gone on strike in early '72. That destroyed the Conservative government. There had to be another election later on in '72 because I think they only had a wafer-thin majority. The Labour government only had 3 or 4 seats. So they went back to the country. The Conservatives got in again. But then we had the oil crisis in '73 through the Arab-Israeli war,
Yeah.
who restricted supplies to the UK because we were seen to be on the Israeli side.
Mm.
So they didn't send us the oil, or they charged a hell of a lot for it. So some of us may remember there was a 3-day week. There wasn't enough power.
Yeah.
We had to look in the local newspaper, when are we going to get power? And it only happened a few times a week. There was a bit of a rota.
Yeah.
Luckily in those days we didn't have too much that needed power, apart
No.
from heating possibly and cooking. But we made do with paraffin stoves, torches, candles.
Yeah, coal fires. Yeah.
Absolutely. So I think he could see from America, Britain was in a really bad state. That's why his message was in a way confrontational, but with a smile. Because he was doing it in a jokey way, but there was a very serious message. He said, look, you managers, generally, you're absolutely hopeless. The poor worker is not getting any interest from working for you. Consequently, your profits are always going to be quite low, and productivity will be quite low.
It's interesting, having come back from recently worked in America, how that authoritarian still exists, because if you're interviewed for a job example, they'll give you some scenarios and they say, what do you want to do? And the answer they want is, you're going to refer to your supervisor. We don't want you thinking for yourself. And it's coming from different, it's quite struggling. Actually, we've probably moved on more than America has.
Yeah. I think that concept where he said, you want to talk to the guy in the next department, but you go to your supervisor, then talks to his supervisor, and it's that Chinese whisper thing. Instead of talking direct and getting to the actual problem, it becomes a Chinese whisper and gets watered down, and the message doesn't actually get fed through properly.
And you get fed up.
Yeah.
Why would you bother next time?
Because you're disgruntled, because nothing changed.
Yeah, absolutely. And he made a very key point of that.
Yes.
So, bear in mind, as a professor, he was actually working with lots of big firms in America, and he really got the ear of what the workers were saying. So he had a really good idea as to what works and what doesn't work through his years and years of research. Lovely, thank you for that. So lots of stuff to bear in mind. Now, also got to bear in mind, all the stuff that you've mentioned actually is stuff that we can do or not do. So there's lessons to be learned for our own performance, perhaps. Right, what have we got next then? Number 3. What teaching aids did he use? Chalkboard. That was it.
Yeah.
So he was rather lazy. He could have used slides, he could have used a bit of film, but it was just his voice. So very lazy, although interestingly he did have a radio mic provided by the BBC around his neck. I don't know if you noticed that. That was so rare in those days to have such a thing. But he didn't use it, it was the BBC that chose it. Right, number 4, we're looking at quotes, but I'm just going to kick off with, he started fairly near the start with something called QWL. What on earth does that stand for?
Quality of work life.
Quality of work life. Now that was 72, and in 2000 in the UK, particularly in the public sector, we had a WLB policy, which stands for the work-life balance. Absolutely. So he was nearly 30 years ahead of his time. However, you may be aware that the work-life balance policy has simply degenerated into flexi time.
Well, so is that really the same thing though? Because he
No,
was
it's
talking
not.
about what you do while you're at work.
Yeah.
Work-life balance is more about getting more time out of work to
Exactly. He was saying, why can't management make work just as interesting, challenging, fun and exciting as what you might do at home? But it's just degenerated to Excel spreadsheets with flexi time.
Yeah.
So he was talking about it much more holistically, but if you've got an Excel, you've cracked it. Not quite as simple as that. So we're going to go around the room in a moment and see if there's any quotes you'd like to share. So kick off with you, John. Do you have a one-liner that you'd like to share? Don't worry if you haven't.
Not enough opportunities, usability.
Yes, actually, I might have that already. Looking at page 12, item number 3. Motivation is a combination of ability and the opportunity to use that ability. Can I ask you to read the next paragraph, which sort of firms that up? So it gives you some teaching methods that you can use that will use people's opportunities for their abilities. Case studies, role plays, simulations and so on. Now can you tell me why demonstration or lecture will not provide opportunities to use their abilities?
It's largely a one-way process.
Yeah.
It's just from the teacher.
It's passive, isn't it? So demo and lecture is done to the learner, whether they want it or not. Whereas case study, role play and so on, you've got to engage with it. There's stuff to do, working with your colleagues perhaps. That's where in training we can provide those opportunities to use people's abilities. Now I guess some of you like me have gone on some training courses for a few days perhaps, and you come back to work and you just can't use it. For me it was IT. And if you can't use it, do you remember it for long?
No.
No, you forget it. I don't know if anybody you are similar to me. With IT, you learn all these wonderful things, but you don't practice them at work. You just forget them. Yeah, I certainly did.
Yeah.
Yeah, closed book to me after a few weeks. Thank you very much for that, John. Ryan, do you have another one you'd like to share? Don't worry if you haven't.
When you buy people, they never give you their best performance.
Ah, right, interesting. Yeah. So when you buy people, they're never going to give you their best performance. But they might give you a slightly better than average performance. Because their heart isn't in it. So they will be more productive temporarily, but they're not going to give it their all. It's like that donkey. Thank you very much. Do you have another one there, Eric?
The more a person can do, the more you can motivate them.
Yes, and that's item number 4 on page 12, right at the bottom there. The more a person can do, the more you can motivate them. And he went on to say, training is the most powerful motivator that you have in your personnel armamentarium. Now, he's made that word up, but what do you think an armamentarium might be? An armoury?
His own personal skills.
Yeah.
Yes. But
Portfolio type of thing.
it's a bit interesting, he's used a war terminology,
Yeah.
really. Let's fight the workers. Now, we're lucky in that we're all in training. We have got the biggest motivating tool out there for our employees if management also buys into it as well, picks up on all these things. Unfortunately, sometimes they don't. Lovely, Eric. Thank you very much. Do you have another one there, Rob?
Treat well, get movement.
Right. So treat
Treat well, get movement.
well. Get. So what does that mean to you, do you think?
If you look after somebody, then they'll generally look after you.
Yeah, but he did make the difference, the distinction between movement and motivation. So movement was, yeah, if you pay me that 10,000 quid, I'll do stuff for you, I'll move, but maybe my heart really isn't in it, and perhaps I won't do my very best. So the extrinsic motivators are all about treating well, and you will get movement, but you won't get the big key buy-ins unless the job is something they enjoy doing and they find interesting to do. Thank you, Rob. Do you have another one there, Vivian?
I don't.
All right, no worries. Chris, do you have
There's
another one?
something
No, I
there.
think they've covered the ones.
Yeah, it's
that
going to
I-
get hard as we go round. Do you have another
Actually,
one?
I like the very first quote he used with the horseshoe. Works whether you believe it or not.
Yes.
I thought that was brilliant. You know.
Now, with the horseshoe, do we do it that way up or that way up?
Second way.
Second
It's the
one.
second way, it's not
The
is
look
it?
falls down.
It's the horseshoe.
Yeah. Mhm.
Sorry, we're doing what with the horseshoe there?
Just that's
That
it, that way.
The U.
Yeah, and we're collecting the luck,
Oh,
aren't we,
yeah.
in there?
Yeah. But
Yeah,
I thought that was brilliant because whether you believe it or not,
yeah,
we all have opportunities and a bit of luck comes our way,
absolutely,
and the opportunities to move on and grow.
yeah.
So I thought it was brilliant.
I think with management, often they're quite frightened of their positions and they don't want to rock the boat
Mm.
because they might lose that position, lose that status, lose that job. So it can be in quite a tricky position. What else have we got then? I'm looking at number 1 on the list here on page 12. He said again near the beginning, like the horseshoe, treat me the way I am, not the way you want me to be.
Yeah.
So you've got somebody with certain skills, they might be neurodiverse. Well, let's tap into what they can do and don't focus on what they can't do. Anything else that I think is important?
All jobs should be a
Yes. Top of page
learning
13.
experience.
Why have you mentioned that then?
Sorry, can I bring the lunch through?
You can, if you can
Thank
pop it
you.
on there.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Well, it should be. At the end of the day, if it's treated as a learning experience, you actually grow
Yes,
and you actually enjoy the job
Very
you're
much.
doing.
absolutely.
I really like
Thanks,
this one, more than I was before.
Yes. I'm going to come on to that one in a moment because I want
Thank
to
you.
explore that. Now, he did draw on the chalkboard these concentric circles in terms of item
So,
number 5.
what he
when-
was saying is, this is the job you're doing at the moment, but this is the job you're employed for, and that's where we want you to get to.
so you're on the inner circle there.
Yeah, to move to the outer circle
And
of
day by day,
experience.
exactly, you're learning to accommodate new skills and eventually you'll get to the outer circle.
Mhm.
Now, according to his theory, when the employee has got to the outer circle, what must happen next, according to his theory?
You need to draw
Create
another
another
circle
one.
and then move him along.
Yeah.
And then
If it's,
hopefully retire.
well, the point is, it may or may not be possible to enrich the job. So that means he has to go to a completely different job, possibly, where there are new concentric circles to start off in the middle and then go to the end there. So it's a finite concept there. Because once you've mastered the job, you've mastered the job. There may be nowhere else to go, possibly. So you need to get somebody else into that job.
Do you get people who have to constantly jump circles?
Well, I think traditionally what the answer might be is perhaps no.
I didn't know about that because Vandenberg and Jerkins, where my brother used to work, he was a line-up.
Right.
And basically, they used to feed the machines. And they make all the butters and all that.
Right.
It-Bic, Stalk, can't believe it's not better and all that. So what they used to do was, because their machinery had different ingredients fed into them and worked in a different way. After they mastered that, as you were saying about Volvo, they moved him on to the next line. And then they didn't only become just line feeders, they actually taught them how to maintain the machinery and fix them as well. So, and they moved them around the factory. So that circle, you start in the middle, got to the outside, and then it put somewhere else.
So they've taken on board Herzberg's work.
Yeah.
Yeah, very much so. I don't know the answer, but in my experience, lots of people have told me they get very bored and frustrated at work. So I'm guessing for some places they don't bother, because management has to bother. It's not an easy thing to do. Going to number 8 there, which Eric mentioned, why do you think that's quite important, Eric?
It's your own growth, isn't it?
That's exactly it.
It's the hard side of it.
Yes, it's all about the heart, isn't it? And you're not, as trainers, we're not just stuffing people full of knowledge and skills. We're trying to move people on personally with their social skills and so many other things. And at the end of the day, you can genuinely feel that you have moved on after your training that you've given them. They're more than they were before. Well, you've done your job. And that's why, as you said earlier on there, Dave, we can feel great satisfaction from doing our job well, because we've seen people move on.
It's next door.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
That goes again. Now the final question, well, what does it mean for us then as trainers? Well, let's just have a look at this flip chart again. Now you probably realise actually that everything on here can lead to intrinsic motivation. So we're going to make our session relevant, interesting, engaging and challenging. We're going to use a mix of pedagogy and andragogy, not just pedagogy. That will allow us to address all 4 learning types, because we've got the variety in there. We're then addressing the head, the heart and the hands. Which one of those did we say was the most important? The heart. So once we've got them in emotionally, we've hooked them in emotionally, then we've now got an environment in which they can generate their own steam and charge ahead, learning in the training scenario. So that's what we're after then with the work we do. It's very hard to do, but at least we're going to be trying possibly. So your job after lunch is to try and get your own colleagues in this room to be intrinsically motivated in your 15-minute session. So not a tall order for that.